Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast with Dr. Jessie Mahoney.
And Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang.
We are physicians and leaders who are also trained in coaching, yoga, mindfulness, and integrative medicine.
We are also mothers, spouses, sisters, daughters, aunts, and friends.
In this podcast, we share candid, heart-centered, loving, science-based, thoughtful, and often fun conversations about the challenges life throws at us.
With our collective experience of over 30 years in physician and personal wellness, we reflect and offer pearls of wisdom for navigating life's challenges with more ease.
From parenting, marriages, money scarcity, cancer survivorship, uncertainty, challenges in practicing medicine, we cover it all.
We invite you to refresh your perspective and empower yourself with mindset, mindfulness, and other well-being tools that actually work. A quick reminder that nothing in our podcast is medical advice.
Welcome to our episode on, of course, expect it and accept it. Some tools for moving forward in upsetting times. Have you and or your loved ones been rattled, disgusted, angered, saddened, and frankly scared with the first few days of the new administration?
This episode is here to honor how you feel, accept and perhaps not alike that you feel threatened, and to notice whether it feels personal and to notice the fear and potential catastrophizing coming up.
Okay, so this is my kind of vulnerable episode because I'm literally offended and I'm also scared because I'm an immigrant. I'm a woman of color. And even though I've been in the States since I was 5 years old, I never thought that my constitutional rights would be encroached upon. But with this administration, I suppose you are right, Jessie. Like, of course, and also there is some expectation of this kind of shock and awe type of mentality to exert or make a show of exerting power, I should say. And yeah, I do actually feel like there is a personal attack, and also against those that I love, and also for those who identify as being from marginalized communities, many of whom are my patients. So my disclaimer here is that I'll be using some profanities during this episode to better articulate my emotions and lived experience because it is part of my truth. So takeaways for you, dear listener, is to normalize the discomfort and validate all of the uncomfortable emotions that are arising, how to hold space for your lived experience and those who are vulnerable, and then, most importantly, how you can respond with clarity and intention.
And I might add, move forward with ongoing presence. We were talking about that before this started, that's really what we need. And when I think of that, I think of the presence is deliberate, it's intentional, it's calm, it's thoughtful. And so when I have seen all of the things come up, I like to choose my words carefully. So just things, words, actions, demonstrations of things. My first thought is I'm not surprised. And I think many of us held on to hope that maybe it would be different. And yet really we shouldn't be surprised. And in fact, we probably shouldn't be surprised by anything in politics these days. And that we get to choose how to respond in this situation. We can't change what's happening, but we can choose how we respond. And part of choosing that is using tools. And so, of course, was one of the things I offered to you this week. Like, what else did you expect? One thing I was listening to recently is we should listen to what people say. And I think very often as people who are trying to see the glass half full, we ignore what people say. And that's where we don't expect things that we should have expected. And so my thought is to expect it. And that for me, at least, then I get to choose how to respond. Still don't have to like it, still don't have to resist it, but it's helpful. And the idea of course is similar. And of course is also just like accepting. It's not resigning, it's not condoning, it's not agreeing. It's just saying, of course, he has decided to do it in this way. Of course, he's decided to throw out all of this stuff all in the first few days. It's actually not unexpected. And it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean we like it. We then get to decide what to do. But I find the of course very helpful to me in relieving the pressure and relieving the stress. And the expect it, the same thing. And so for those, I can breathe and then I get to choose how I want to move forward. I do think, though, it is important to allow whatever feelings you have. And you mentioned several, you are in several categories that are being targeted by a lot of the things that are coming out in the news. And to not gaslight yourself and say like, oh, it's fine. It's not fine. We mentioned this in the last episode. And we had talked a bit, you and I, about this, how interesting, or I wonder, maybe not the right time for those. And so being selective with the tools that you use. And in this podcast, we share so many tools, but recognizing that not every tool is right for every time. And so be discerning and be selective.
Yeah. So what's going on, I think, goes beyond how interesting, and of course, and even a little bit more than the let them that we talked about in the prior episode. So for me, my initial reaction was more like, the fuck? Or what the fuck? And these two emphatic question plus exclamations, there is an honest curiosity mixed in with some surprise, mixed in with some disbelief more at like the inhumanity and the gall, and then along with that the anger, all kind of rolled in together.
And I'm just going to say, like, I'm not surprised with the gall, and I'm not surprised with the audacity to just go for it. Whatever it is. Again, I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to condone it. I don't even have to like it. But I do get to choose to accept it. And I think that those words might offend people, right? But my thought in accepting it is happening. It is the reality. It is what's happening. And when I accept it, I can move on to choosing the tone and energy by which I respond and what I decide to think, feel, do, all the things. And so when I drop that resistance, I can drop into creativity and agency and maybe a more solutions focused mindset. And I actually think when I hear you say swear words, which is fun because you rarely swear, you get this energy that's not deflated, but it's also not sort of like a reactive punching back energy. It's giving you this lightness and energy and a little bit of agency back. And that's the power of words. And so I think sometimes we're like, well, that's a useless response. I'm like, notice your response, notice what's helpful and notice what's not, and choose what's helpful for you. And I even see here what's helpful for you is different than what's helpful for me. And that is, of course, true. And so while we often share tools here, we share a smorgasbord, and you get to pick which one works for you when. It's the selectivity and the discernment that's the super powerful tool, and where you get back your calm and agency. So once you've dropped this resistance, so you have said, of course, it's not unexpected. I can accept and I always like to say, choose whatever emotion you'd like after that. Accept and not like would be the most neutral version. Then you get to decide what's in your control. We talked about this last time, but being even more thoughtful, what can you do, think, or feel that is aligned and productive? So for some people, it's being in a supportive community. For some people, it's not reading things. For some people, it is reading things. For some people, it's awareness. For some people, it's spending lots of time on their yoga mat. For all of us, it's different. So what can you do that feels aligned? What can you do that restores and replenishes you? What can you do that feels productive? And again, dropping out of all the external judgments of this is productive, you should do this, but what for you is productive. I have shared a bit on Facebook that I've been spending a ton of time in nature. That is productive for me right now. And because it gives my nervous system this calmness, and it is restorative to me so that I can show up helping other people navigate, and recognizing that this word productive, we often think it's churning out more of something or this or that, but what's truly productive for you? The other thing is to check in with your future self. And I find that really helpful. The trick here is to be discerning about which future self. So do I want to check in with my future self this afternoon? Well, she wish I had, I just watched this thing on New York Times that I should not have watched. For someone who's trying to avoid all of this information, it's unavoidable this time around. But it was about how you notice when your country is falling into a tyranny. And it was people that from other countries around the world. So see, I should not have been watching this. And I can laugh at myself. I did only watch 1 minute of the 3 minutes. And it was quite interesting. People from all over the world about the things that they should have noticed at the beginning. And I was like, this is useful. And then I thought, my future self will not wish I had spent time listening to this. And so asking your future self, my future self, an hour from then, when we started recording this podcast, or this weekend, when I'm, celebrating a birthday with someone I love, or whatever it is, like asking your future self, or I might even look ahead, like even in 4 years, when things may look totally different, will my future self wish I had spent time on this? Probably not. But what will my future self wish I had spent time on? And so I feel like our future selves are wise. They are not reactive. They are actually pausing and being present and being selective and discerning about what feels good. Your future self also knows you the best. So I don't know you the best. You don't know you the best. In fact, one of the cool things about coaching is a lot of people think coaching is more advice or mentorship, but it's not. It's really working with your own brain and your own physiology to figure out what do you need to move forward with more grace and agency in the midst of quite upsetting things.
So I'm gonna share what the last few days have looked like for me in terms of how I have paused and remained present. A shout out to your company, Jessie, and then chosen my response. And of course, in the beginning, once I heard about what was going on, there was an initial inclination to react by like posting something very angry and reactive on like social media, or like even yelling and screaming or venting to loved ones, to safe spaces, which, there is definitely a time and place for that. But over the last couple of days, I've realized that those things were not going to help anyone. So after allowing myself to feel all the feels, Um, I have been, to the best of my ability, sticking to my family's routine with school and extracurricular activities, my own self care as usual. I have taken some more introspective time to reflect and become grounded. So just now I came back from a hike, a trail that I usually don't go on. But unfortunately, it wasn't as um, parasympathetic because I had a good view of the Border 2 fire, which is now like over 4,000 acres destroyed in southern San Diego. So seeing the plumes of smoke, that wasn't so relaxing, but I mean, it was, what was reality at that time. But I could still enjoy the nature that was around me immediately that wasn't burning. So I became grounded. in my self-care ways, especially involving nature, so that I could become more clear about what I wanted to articulate, what I wanted to communicate, um, how I want to help others, and how I might want to help myself. So, one of the things was, and this is the very first time that I've done this, but I wrote a letter with the help of ChatGPT, who is pretty darn eloquent, but you do definitely have to proofread a letter to the Attorney General of California asking for legal action regarding particularly the blocking of scientific communications, because literally we in medicine rely on that type and that level of public communication and scientific dissemination to help do our jobs and care for other people better. So this order definitely affected me personally, but beyond that, it also affects my loved ones and also my very vulnerable patients, who most of whom have chronic lung disease. I also reached out to those that were struggling or were affected by recent statements and attempts at overhauls in the federal government to basically, I just checked in with them, reaffirmed my support and unconditional love. Like, I couldn't change what was happening from Washington, D.C., but at the very least, I could make myself known to these people that I was there and that I love them, I care for them, and I'm willing to help. And then I also renewed my ACLU membership and donated to them, because as those in power attempt to do whatever they'd like, with basically no regard for the Constitution, legal resistance and legal action can and must be taken, but unfortunately, it's pretty darn expensive to do that. So there's a cost, both emotional and also monetarily, for that type of resistance. So to echo what you said, Jessie, the acceptance of the present moment is definitely necessary for grounding. I can even say that I don't like the accepting and not liking. Like, I feel like I need something even stronger than that. But I am acknowledging that dropping the resistance of fighting reality is what's key, so that we can move on and be much more productive in how we respond to reality. So the acceptance also enables us to have a spaciousness and bringing in curiosity about how we would like things to potentially change, how we would like things to be, even if that's not the current reality, and how my intention, and what they are, and what kind of actions to take, to then actually resist, like capital RESIST, like Star Wars and the resistance type, resist in capital letters the systematic stripping away of human decency and inclusivity. So I know that I'm just beginning, but I do feel good about this most recent response that I've taken. I feel clear about my intentions, and I feel that those actions were thoughtful and not acting out of pure fear or anger or just an automatic reactivity of fight or flight. I also remained in alignment with my values of authenticity and compassion, not just for myself, but I feel like for humanity too. So I didn't rush into action, and I really did take some time to think about what I could contribute after giving myself the space to feel everything I needed to feel, which I'm still doing, but then concurrently at the same time choosing my response.
So you were patient, didn't drop into urgency. You paused, you were present, allowed all the emotions, and in that presence chose purposeful action. So I'm going to offer the 4 P's, which I wrote down as you were speaking: patience, pause, presence, and purposeful. as a different way. I think sometimes we need little mnemonics, especially those of us in medicine, we're used to them. But when we are emotionally challenged and upset, sometimes dropping into something that you just know is helpful. And so thinking about that. Reflecting also, you mentioned that you do not have to like accepting. And not only can you accept and not like, but you do not have to like accepting and not liking. Nobody does. What we like is the effects of accepting. And when we accept, it allows us to show up patient, pausing, present, and purposeful. So a lot of tongue twisters there, but kind of a fun recognition and important, I think, for all of us. Nobody likes accepting, in quotes. It's not fun. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. You like the outcome, but you don't necessarily like the process. For many of us, patience is similar. We don't like being patient, but we like how we respond when we pause and slow down and are patient. So a few thoughts. The other thing to bring up here, you mentioned, is reminding yourself of the facts, and that a lot of the things that are being put out there are simply being put out there. They're incendiary, they're inflammatory. That does not mean they're the end product. They does not mean they're happening. Many of you know I'm married to a lawyer, and he's like, yeah, they can do and say whatever they want. Like, you can't just change the Constitution. There are constitutional things in there and processes. And so that was really helpful to me. I was like, can you really do that? The answer is no, you cannot. You can put out whatever you want. And really what's going to happen here is we're going to get to watch our systems work. So as you mentioned, lots of legal responses to things that have already been put out there. And for most of us who have an urgency bias and we're in our catastrophizing, the legal system takes forever. And so it's good and bad because it will stall some things out while it's being processed through the legal system. And it doesn't make it any less terrifying, I think, but to really understand the facts. What's a fact? What's the story your brain is offering about it? A reminder to drop into generosity of like, I won't say good stories, but not terrible stories about things that are happening, and stick to the facts. What is true? And many of you know I've done another round of coach training with Martha Beck, and she leans into Byron Katie's work about, and Byron Katie's work is really about radical acceptance, but from a little bit of a different lens. And as you were speaking, I was like, wow, this is the perfect spot for that, of asking this question, well, what is true? What is really true? And then how do you think when you feel or think this way? And I think when we're triggered, or when we're leaning into taking it personally, which you mentioned, thinking it's about you specifically, your family, your parents, your heritage, your this, we generally don't think, act, and react in the most helpful ways. And so I think recognizing, is this actually about me, Ni Cheng, or is this actually about my family or my children or my parents or my patients? It impacts all of those people potentially, not today. Well, the words that are said impact you today, but the actual, what do they call them? Decrees, orders, I'm blanking on the word, but whatever language they are, which sounds really powerful. Those don't actually go into effect or change too many things in the moment. So asking yourself, what is true? What is really true? And how do you think, feel, act, think, experience life when you think those thoughts? And then you get to decide who you might be without that thought. And there's a whole long process, but for really emotional situations, it's a really helpful process to go through. And it's actually quite a formal process that you definitely need training in. And I will point out that until I actually got trained in it, I hated it. I was like, I don't know about this. But when there's something really emotional that's really sticky and hard to detach from, like taking things that our country's leaders say personally and feeling attacked, it's really helpful. So, and why it's helpful is not in condoning them or saying like, oh yeah, this is fine. It's helpful in gathering your own inner grace and strength so that you can respond purposefully and intentionally and be present. So recognizing that we have a complex system is the actual truth, and that a lot of these orders are a first play and they are triggering a lot of downstream responses. And your thought that those downstream responses and lawsuits are expensive, and that is something that we may want to contribute to in whatever ways needed. The other thought here is that we don't have to react right away. We can pause and be present, and we can respond even now in one way. And then if things change, we can respond in a different way. So the key piece of mindfulness here that keeps popping up for me is be aware and notice, be cognizant of what's going on without being in this reactive energy. And then we can decide every step of the way what we need to do. So that I think for many of us, we feel like if we don't launch into the reaction and response right away, we're letting this tidal wave of terribleness happen. And yet we can change our response in any moment. And so as long as we're aware and we don't have our head under a pillow, we should be able to use our inner wisdom and our intuition and our understanding and creative response. We call it perpetual creative response. That can be a real tool of strength. So as you all move forward, I'm going to put out my nudge to show up with ongoing presence. That's how I'm going to do it. Not because it's Pollyanna, not because it's all fine and I'm going to sit on a mountaintop and meditate. That's not what ongoing presence is. It's the patience, it's the pausing, it's the purposeful action and responses. It's strategic. It's, to me, ongoing presence is calm and grounded, and it's intentional, and it's choosing not just the actions you take, but the tone and energy of those actions. And for me, it's where that agency is found in the midst of all of this stuff happening. Again, I use kind of vague words here because I feel safer when they're vague. And it doesn't mean that I won't respond. It gives me this spaciousness to breathe and not have a lump in my throat or a pit in my stomach and be able to respond more gracefully. So what I see is that all of this stuff of the week, the language I'm going to use is it's a call to action on our own parts to lean into our highest, wisest self and think about what we want to do in response, what we can do in response. And some of those things are, as you mentioned, taking fantastic care of our own health and well-being, being a shining light for other people, supporting causes we believe in, being in communities that support us. And for me, what I've come to realize in the last few days is that this is going to be an ongoing project. That's why I say it's ongoing presence. It's an ongoing practice, as we talk about, and an ongoing creative response to what happens. And this is going to take a fair bit of energy and care. And so how can you do that in the most strategic, healthy way?
So as we end our episode, we hope that this was somewhat helpful, and hope that you will share far and wide and leave us some stars and reviews. I also want to pose some of these questions to all of you for our reflection questions. Is there anything that you need to be more patient towards, especially with current events? How might pausing and presence be applied to serve you? And then lastly, in your chosen response, because you have full agency in how you respond, what would be the purpose of the response that enables you to remain in alignment with your values?
Adding one more component of mindfulness that came to the forefront of my brain as you were saying that is bringing in some non-judgment of your response However your body is reacting and responding and feeling is human. And a non-judgment of others' responses. When we feel on edge and threatened, we tend to start judging. I judge how you respond, you judge how I respond, even people we love and care about, and recognizing that there's going to be a myriad of response to this. And again, we don't have to like it, but trying to stay out of judgment is where we get a bit more grounded, calm, clear, strategic action. Doesn't mean you approve or condone, but this notion of sort of judging everyone, that is what's being sent out as the political message, and we don't have to respond with the same. And a nudge also to join us for Connect in Nature, because if ever there was a time to go out in nature and enjoy it while it's here and in its beauty, and treating your nervous system to the healthy effects of that and the calming effects of community, and filling up your toolbox with all the things you might need over the next few years, it's now. So Nicheng and I do one retreat together a year, and that is it. And it's going to be over Labor Day, and we would love to have you come. It's also one of the only retreats that I do where you can bring a partner that men can join, and people not in medicine are also welcome to join, because the benefits of nature are really valuable for everyone, as is pause and presence and the value of mindfulness. So please join us for that. We would love to get to meet you and connect in person. And if you find this podcast valuable and you listen to it, Connect in Nature is that and so much more. So we would love to meet you and share that with you. And if those dates don't work, I also believe this is the year to take care of yourself and sign up for a retreat or some coaching. Figure out what you need to move forward through whatever is showing up for us in this next window of time. Please stay on after the sound of the singing bowl to enjoy our mindful moment offering. We offer them every podcast because we are putting out what we believe can be helpful to you in the world. And the more people that partake of those, the better place we will all live in. And we hope to see you next week.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We encourage you to dive into the show notes for each episode for more learnings and resources.
We also invite you to take a listen to the many other Mindful Healers podcast episodes, and please share the podcast far and wide with colleagues, friends, and family.
If our message and approach resonate with you, we would love to work with you.
When you listen to a podcast, you consume information, but when you work with us, you can actually practice and change.
We offer coaching and mindfulness experiences, talks, workshops, retreats, and more. Connect with us at themindfulhealerspodcast.com.
The content of this podcast is not medical or life advice. We invite you to participate in the mindful moments we offer at the end of most of our podcasts, but please only do so safely.
Welcome to this mindful moment offering, inviting you to close your eyes or lower your gaze a few inches in front of you if it's safe for you to do so. And begin by noticing the support beneath you, whether that's the ground or a chair, a bed, a couch. Remembering that support is unconditional and present all the time. And then next, inviting you to bring your hands to your heart and pushing in just a little bit, noticing the support of the hands atop each other and the warmth that it creates atop your chest. And inviting you to bring into your mind's eye a loved one. Be another human being that you love unconditionally, or a pet, some living being that you have unconditional love for, and wishing that human being or other living being these loving and kind intentions. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. And thanking your loved one for being part of this practice, inviting you to envision a group of people that traditionally identify as marginalized and sending them those same loving and kind intentions. Because no matter who you are as human beings, we are all deserving of those same loving and kind intentions. So sending those intentions with a capital Y-O-U. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. And inviting you to bring yourself into a collective we of this country, of the world, because we only do have one world that we all belong to, no matter who we are. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be happy. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be happy. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be happy. May we be free from harm. And highlighting that collective capital W-E, we of this world. Taking that larger worldview and this sense of a larger collective we into your heart, into your intentions. Bring your intention back to this practice. And noticing where your attention is now. Bringing it back to the sensations of the hands atop the heart. And gently bringing your hands back to your lap. Blinking open eyes, letting the light back in. Taking a moment now to notice how you feel compared to just a few minutes ago. Thanks so much for practicing loving kindness with me.